What do you like about the markets?
The contact with people is amazing. I love that. Yeah, I miss it. That was one of the gorgeous things. I get emotional, I think.
Yeah, but it's proper community.
Amazing people.
Yeah.
Amazing people. And like when I went in hospital, a lot of people come and see me, for example. And a couple coming in, and the woman still comes to the markets, and she's still madly in love with her husband. But he died on the Saturday night. Do you understand me? And so she's still, when I talk about it, we still talk about him and talk about it. So you're meeting loads of people like this.
What's the margin for error in terms of like you growing a crop, that crop failing, or a market closing or whatever, and you having enough money or vegetables going to waste, or for people who are trying to understand, like how close to the line is it?
Certainly with the markets, for example, it had a huge effect last year with markets closing down. You suddenly, maybe 2 or 3 of the biggest markets closing down, you're suddenly wasting more stuff. It was crazy stuff. And also, like you're looking at, I remember I had a big tunnel, for example, at Black Hay last year. It was as good a crop as I've ever grown, but we had to just pull it out. Do you understand? It was insane. Because normally that would have gone into markets, and the markets just weren't there. And like last week, 2 big markets were cancelled. That would have been quite substantial markets. Do you understand me? So it's hard to know what. I've sown a load of stuff there now, and I'm thinking, God, these markets better open, or else things are going to go to waste. It's as simple as that.
One of the questions that people asked last week was why wasn't all the vegetables that I put into those bags Irish? How do you feel about that? Like, in fact, the fact that you have to import quite a lot to supplement your growing business. Do you think people understand that?
I think they more and more understand it, I think. But like at this time of the year, the selection of Irish stuff this time of the year is very small. And it's just what's coming out of tunnels, essentially, and the carrots and parsnips there. It's very, very small amount. But I'm trying to do it very consciously, is not to go too far away. So like staying in Europe as much as humanly possible. And
do you think people understand that if they're spending more at the market, that they're spending more for somebody like you editing essentially and making the right choices on their behalf? Do you think people...
maybe a tiny bit.
Yeah.
But I think, for example, I'm quite conscious that we need to be paid for the crops we're growing. Like Oliver's growing carrots for me, he's got to be paid for them, or he won't do it. People think he's going to be working for 3 pence an hour. It's just nonsense. He works 15 hours a day, maybe 16 hours a day. And he needs to be paid for it. And I'm very conscious that the guys need to be paid for the damn thing, you know?
And understanding, like when you're opting for Denis Healy's organic, whether it be his own homegrown potatoes, carrots, or whether it's the asparagus that he's also chosen to come from Spain as opposed to South America, whatever, like that they know what that's about. Because I feel like there's lots of 50 and 60-year-olds who don't. And who are well-educated people.
But also they're not coming from farms that are growing 500 acres of potatoes. This kind of stuff, you know. In a way, you're paying for your diversity. You know, it's an environmental thing. The most we'd be growing potatoes or that kind of stuff is maybe 4 or 5 acres. You know, whereas the big, that's pathetic on the.
It's not good for the land. It's not the future
it's
for
really not good.
How growing
really
needs to be in Ireland.
Yeah. And I know when we came here, for example, I think if we didn't buy this farm, it'd be 2 fields basically. All the ditches would be gone, and the whole farm would be gone. In fact, there'd be a house in the middle maybe, and there'd be 2 fields.
And you have your little grandchildren and your children running around. You're looking at them and going,
they're loving that.
What am I giving them?
Yeah. I'm very conscious of that now. Yeah, very conscious. As you get older, especially, you know, you get more conscious of it. I think when I was 50, I wasn't thinking what I'm going to leave for my grandchildren. Not too much anyway.
Yeah.
No. I was on the way to Stillorgan Market. I was getting up in the morning.
Yeah.
And the room was spinning around. Okay. And then you realise this is not just an ordinary dizziness. It was gone like that. And I remember I got Rika to call the ambulance. The ambulance came, and this is like 7:30 in the morning, maybe not even that. And he said, "If you fall to here, I'll walk away." He thought I was drunk.
Oh my God!
Insane.
Wow.
I went to the hospital, and my brother who died there came in, and he realised as well they think he's drunk, and they were asking me all these questions. That was grand. So I was there for well over an hour, and I'm going in for the scan. I had a second stroke as I was sitting waiting for the scan.
Oh, that was it. Yeah, I remember.
And now they do this fasting. They treat you very. It's from France at the time.
Okay.
And they actually use me as an example. You should treat them fast.
Oi, oi, oi.
Oi is right. Because like my speech was okay up to that, for example, but I couldn't sit up after that. I certainly couldn't talk. I remember I said asparagus the next morning to some of the kids coming in because I knew I had lovely English asparagus in the van. and I knew I was going to be okay with speech-wise because of it. Is that bamboo dying is what I want to know. I only know it's only been planted a little while, but it's only started to go like that in the last few days. I'm just wondering, I don't know. Anyway.
They go so deep as well, bamboo, don't they?
Yeah. But like what's happening here, Tim, is the kids are doing a lot of. They're not actually physically doing it, but they're mad into gardening, into the flowers.
Which is deadly.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And so you have to forget that they're only children. You have to let them play. My instinct, and it's from my father, I know, is they should be working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And if they're not doing something productive, it's a waste of time.
But it's the benchmark for what productivity means, isn't it? Like being productive, just being human. Like that's being productive, right?
Yeah. But they've designed this thing. I'll show you. They've designed a garden, and they do a fair bit, and they raised all them things, for example.
Amazing.
They've made the home. That's only just stuff being moved around, but they've done this. Look at this. So we have a load of them. We've one at the house for the smell coming in, because I got a load of flowers from Marta just for the smell. Yeah. So outside the house, we go in and she goes around smelling every flower. So nice. And what's life about? Jeepers in heaven about. That's it. So she loves it. But this is a lot of work to be waiting now to be done. There's a lot of bulbs coming up, like millions of bulbs coming up. You wouldn't believe it. Because in the summer this was sensation.
I'd imagine.
This was sensation.
Nice.
And so it's all kind of going back to. Melvin is mad into taking cuttings, for example. And what I've done was I've given him a tunnel. So he has his own tunnel, and it's a new covered tunnel, all that kind of stuff. We made a bench for him.
Oh my God.
And so let him on. You're pushing an open door with me as
Yeah. That's the danger. Yeah.
So it's grand.
Good.
Yeah. You're in danger of bankrupting yourself buying plants and stuff like this.
Yeah, once you get into it.
It's amazing. You could get lost here. They designed it with loads of spires. See, it's all going into. Yeah. And they did it with a woman called Roisin Byrne, who's from around here. She worked here years ago. And she works with Dublin Corporation, and she works with people in Dublin as well, designing gardens with no chemicals.
Oh, right.
So she's utterly amazing. And she listens to the kids. She sits the kids down and say, "What do you want?" And she actually listens to them. She's not just doing what she wants. Do you understand? Like if somebody else coming in here, they'd only see weeds. Do you understand me? And there are loads of weeds, of course. We have great friends up in Kiltegan. It's Patana Garden. Look up Patana Garden. It's a small garden. It's sensationally beautiful. But when they come here, they pick up they have a little tortoise, so they've no weeds, so they pick the weeds for they don't use that against weeds, but they
have a tortoise.
But they have a tortoise in the garden, exactly, yeah.
Does anybody else use a tortoise for weeding? That's smart.
I know, but I thought the tortoise is
not for weeding.
Is he selective?
There's no weeds there, there's nothing for him to eat.
Well,
I go into garden centre with Melvin, for example, and what we did for a long time is, you get anything you want, I'll pay half it. And so the two of them, and they've got loads of money because they've done loads of work for me in the markets and stuff. You wouldn't believe it.
Yeah.
But I go in and I say, you pay, suppose 150 euros, I pay 75, they pay 75. And that's 37.50 for each of them. And they've done it.
Yeah.
So and is that something is that anything to do with your upbringing in terms of teaching the value of money? Is that like part of...
Maybe it is, yeah, it might well be. My dad's a farmer, you know.
Okay.
Up in Tala Mountains. When we went looking for a place, we looked all around the Dublin Mountains, but it was you couldn't afford it. So you ended up looking at Leitrim, and at the time, that's where all the organic people, they all headed to where there was...
So my dad was doing,
Yes, exactly, where there was shite land.
Common, shite land.
And so we end up finding... My parents moved out from Temple Og, actually, to here. They would end up living in Temple Og. Oh. And they bought a farm 4 miles away. And then we found 2 farms on the same day that we could probably buy by selling our house and stuff, more or less. And
so you made the decision.
It was amazing. I remember walking down with Duncan saying, "You're going to end up living here."
Really? He just knew it.
He was only maybe 4 hours.
He's like, Dad,
this is where you're going to end up.
Amazing.
You just get somewhere to sit and relax.
Magic.
Oh, it is. It actually is.
That's all you need.
Yeah. And feel the heat when you come in.
Wow,
My
nice.
brother made it
hanging over the lake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, have a look. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
This is like exactly what we wanted to have in Roscommon. This is the thing, hanging over it.
It's actually gorgeous. And I know during the summer when Rika goes for her run, for example, she'll come back in through this every day. And she'll have her, do you understand? She'll have her swim in this and then come in and have her shower.
Nice.
It's actually very nice. Yeah.
So it's like, what sort of temperature is it at now?
Well, we'll throw you in and we find out.
That's actually kind of my sort of thing. Might not go that well though.
It wouldn't be the first.
I'd say.
Oh yeah. I know with the grandchildren they're going mad to get creatures out of it. Do you understand me? I know Dara, for example, is besotted by sea creatures.
Oh.
I thought I saw something like this. And for us now, we can swim in this. Undoubtedly, I'm not a good swimmer. In fact, I'm a shite swimmer.
Okay.
And this
Pre-stroke, post-stroke, make a difference?
No stroke.
You can't even blame the stroke, no.
I can't. No. Yeah, I can't even blame it. I was always shy.
So good.
Yeah, it's relaxing.
Just sitting here and in the sunshine.
Yeah. And I know very often the guys working here, they come in here and sit at lunchtime and sit and have their sandwich there. Yeah.
And Dennis, what
It's
made you
gorgeous.
decide to go organic?
We came here to kind of be self-sufficient, to have like we were living in a farm. I wanted to grow our own food and all that kind of. I want to be on the farm, and then the organic thing came out of when I contacted loads of gardeners. That's what they all did. Then at the time, there was an amazing group of people, and if you're eating something, you don't want to be pouring shite onto it, basically.
Yeah.
As you get older, you need something to keep. I'm loving this no dig thing. I'm really loving it. And I have them all driven mad talking about it. You know, they'll.
Well, I mean, not
I'm
driven that mad
boring
because
the
they're
arse.
doing less work, ideally,
But
right?
I'm boring the arse off Reek
Okay.
and all the rest of it. But I'm loving the idea of it. We sowed. We have a green manure in that field, for example, and you couldn't even go in with a tractor to sow the green manure. We did it by hand, like this. And it did quite well, but you couldn't drive in the field. It's been so wet over the winter. We'll be able to plant into this next week.
Okay, amazing.
Just by taking off the plastic, running over it with the tiller. Do you understand me?
Yeah.
And that's the plan now. So John is getting it ready there today, and hope we have a load of stuff to plant out. This is garlic.
Okay.
Things they just planted. They just planted some scallions. That's all garlic.
Wow, that's a lot.
It's a good bit of garlic, yeah. But that was all done a few months ago, you know.
Oh wow, the smell.
The smell, yeah, it's so pungent, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nice.
We're doing like fresh garlic. We're doing bunches of fresh garlic now.
Oh, lovely.
It's gorgeous. I love it because you're using all the bit of it.
The whole thing, yeah, because the greens are delicious, right?
Yeah. We grow quite a bit of garlic in. And
Yeah.
it's one of these maybe stupid things, but I like doing it. But in here is all kinds. Brendan could be, no, he's a plant. Today, Brendan is planting.
Oh, yeah.
And in here is loads of stuff. Again, I don't know whether we're mad or not, Finn. Do you understand? Because we're there's loads of stuff going to kick in 2 months' time.
Yeah,
That's-
this is a slow part of the season.
There are tomatoes starting off, cucumbers starting off. Delicata squash. There's decorative squash. You know, ones not for eating. And there's blue pumpkins.
Nice.
So there's all kinds. There's a lot of lettuce, a lot of salads. Some of them came early and then got killed by frost here. Some of the cucumbers were killed by frost. They won't take any frost at all. That's an interesting one, for
Yeah,
example.
nice.
I thought there was bad germination, but there wasn't. It germinated fine. But they were all being eaten by something in the compost. You understand? See, look at them. See you can't see it there. You won't see it. There's a little stem with the lettuce. Each one is there's the actual other ones there. Look. Same lettuce. We're doing a lot of the salad leaves in clumps and planting them, not sowing them directly because of weed problem. We're doing them in say 3 or 4 in a little clump in a little cell.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then planting
Yeah.
just to get ahead of weeds because we're specialists in growing weeds in this place.
Yeah.
We're unbelievably good at that. But there's different salad leaves there. Look. Yeah.
And I said, well, you know, are you prepared for what Irish food is going to mean, Irish veg is going to mean this time? You're like, how do you feel about that? Like, in fact, the fact that you have to import quite a lot to supplement your growing business. And do you think that people understand when they come to the market that they're actually looking at the source and think, oh yeah, the ginger's from Peru, the whatever. Like,
Yeah.
do you think people understand that? And do you think, well,
I think that more and more understand it, I think. But like at this time of the year, the selection of Irish stuff this time of the year is very small. And it's just what's coming out of tunnels essentially, and you know, the carrots and parsnips there. It's very, very small amount. But I'm trying to do it very consciously, is not to go too far away. So like staying in Europe as much as humanly possible. Ginger, if I can get limes, for example, I get them from Spain when I can get them, but I haven't been able to get them for 2 weeks, for example. And some things you just simply have to have, you know. But like you have to have lemons, for example, and we're not growing enough lemons here. And so
Yeah.
it's a mixture.
Yeah, it's going to always be that way, I think, as an island nation, isn't it? We're it's so lovely and temperate here, but we haven't got just the temperatures for big citrus stuff.
Yeah.
For like some of the more exotic stuff, like the peppers, and we can get little bits to the summer, but unless people only want to eat peppers for 4 weeks of the year.
Yeah, exactly. And green.
And like that thing when in the 18th century people like put a pineapple on the centerpiece of the table. That cost me £2,000. It came from the Far East, you know.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Unless we're willing to go back there, it's kind of like it's not the future, is it?
But I think very consciously, I'm not going to South America, for example. I will if I have to, you know. But I tend not to. If I have a choice, I'd pay a little bit extra for stuff from Spain, maybe, or France, or whatever.
And you think people understand that if they're spending more at the market, that they're spending more for somebody like you editing essentially and making the right choices on their behalf? Do you think people?
Maybe a little tiny bit.
Yeah.
But I think. For example, I'm quite conscious that we need to be paid for the crops we're growing. Like Oliver's growing carrots for me, he's got to be paid for them, or he won't do it. People think he's going to be working for £3 an hour. It's just nonsense. He works 15 hours a day, maybe 16 hours a day. And he needs to be paid for it. And I'm very conscious that the guys need to be paid for the damn thing, you know.
Yeah, we all have to be willing to pay more for our stuff. I put a thing on Instagram actually yesterday saying that we couldn't afford to put Irish carrots into our juices because the way we'd price them based on import carrots, and still even at that to get organic carrots, and we're still charging £5 for a juice. Are people willing to pay like, you know, out of season prices for stuff, like where they're paying €8 or €9 for a carrot juice? I mean, like, people just, I think it's I mean, it's hard for me to get my head around, so I can imagine how folk who've never grown veg or never been involved in that kind of end of like the cost of food. I feel like that should be a module in like for kids growing up in school. There's so much for them to get to know about like being a consumer and understanding the choices you're making and understanding like when you're opting for Denis Healy's organic, whether it be his own homegrown potatoes, carrots, or whether it's the asparagus that he's also chosen to come from Spain as opposed to South America, whatever. Like that they know what that's about, because I feel like there's lots of 50 and 60-year-olds who don't, and who are well-educated people.
But also they're not coming from farms that are growing 500 acres of potatoes. This kind of stuff, you know. In a way, you're paying for your diversity. You know, it's an environmental thing. The most we'd be growing potatoes or that kind of stuff is maybe 4 or 5 acres. Now, whereas the big, that's pathetic on the.
It's not good for the land. It's not the future
it's
for
really not good.
How growing
really
needs to be in Ireland.
Yeah. And I know when we came here, for example, I think if we didn't buy this farm, it'd be 2 fields basically. All the ditches would be gone, and the whole farm would be gone. In fact, there'd be a house in the middle maybe, and there'd be 2 fields. And there is a price to be paid.
Yeah, but you look what you're paying for, and I think when, like certainly when I come here, and I think everybody gets it, when you're in this, I mean, I can hear what your mission is. And you're talking about like buying trees for the birds, you know, and that's like that.
Very much so, yeah.
It's the opposite to what conventional agriculture is. It's literally the opposite. It's like you might as well call them a different thing. Like one should be called growing food, the other one should be called, I don't know, growing your future or something like, because you're really not, you're thinking about.
Yeah, I'm very conscious of it.
Yeah, which is amazing.
Probably always was a bit, but now in particular, because everybody is now. I think, you know?
It's getting precious, more and more precious, the sense of it, isn't it?
Yeah, big time, yeah.
And you have your little grandchildren and your children running around, you're looking at them and going,
they're loving that.
What am I giving them?
Yeah. I'm very conscious of that now, very conscious. As you get older especially, you know, you get more conscious of it. I think when I was 50 I wasn't thinking what I'm going to leave for my grandchildren, not too much anyway.
Yeah.
Now I have a big load of wine inside I'm going to leave for Melvin apparently.
He's going to be the wine fanatic, he's going to take over.
Tell me something about what's the margin for error in terms of like you growing a crop, that crop failing, or a market closing or whatever, and you having enough money or